Welcome to the Noah Presgrove case. Today, we need to reflect back on the never seen before evidence, a key party photo which has changed the narratives from certain perspectives. But visually, there are some disagreements and claims that a particular photo isn't from the party Noah attended, and it's actually an older one. Join me today as I share with you a side-by-side comparison and give my thoughts on the matter to try and figure out what's going on. A video like this, of course, is needed, and as I said, updates will follow when necessary. But furthermore, by the title, we do need to look at the response of what's gone down in recent time amongst themes of that nature and beyond. Important evidence coming out, but not everyone is reacting in a positive way. Let's just put it like that. Hence, it does suggest that there is proof that humans don't want the truth behind the case to come out public. Now, I've dealt with problematic people and issues like this in the past, so it's not a big surprise to me, but for some of you, especially if you're involved in true crime or a community for the very first time around, you might find it quite shocking and disheartening. But don't worry, whilst you're here, it's all under control. It'll be okay. And today I'm going to assess and analyze and break it down bit by bit to make it a bit clearer for you, so then you know how to approach the next steps when dealing with these said individuals if you ever cross paths. But the main and first focal point will be of that party house photo. Welcome to those that are currently here watching this live premiere. Share your reactions in the live chat box on the right side of the screen there. And as well, if you have any questions, answers, thoughts, theories, replies, whatever it is, it's all welcome. Be sure to drop a comment down below under the video and I'll try and respond back when I can. And if you would like to support my channel and what I do on the case, there is a PayPal link to click on below in the pinned comments message. Beside that, if you'd like to catch up on the recent coverage of what I've done with this case and other important findings, the full playlist and videos are available top right corner where the I symbol is up there. If you click on it, you get the drop down menu box and some loose videos attached. The order of how we'll do this today is jump right into this particular photo, side-by-side comparison, and then look at the disturbing comments by some. Once again, this is the photo in question, and I have cropped it down just a bit for obvious reasons. YouTube guidelines. This is for educational usage, purpose, and analysis. Whilst we've already done a side-by-side comparison, and hopefully people were there to witness it at the time before the video was taken down, of what Jack was wearing here compared to what he was wearing from other photos, and the same with Noah Presgrove, we ultimately came to the conclusion, just based on that alone, that it was Saturday morning, afternoon, evening, night, past midnight. It was Saturday. The clothing matched the other photos from Noah Presgrove with his hand up, with his damaged knuckles, beige khaki shorts. The photo of Noah being written on from the back with the khaki shorts. Jack Newton when he wanted to get slapped or punched by Shandon Johnson, Saturday night evening, same clothing as what you see here. And even Jasmine Millen, I believe, in the background, same top. But it's not just people, it's not just clothing, it's the objects in the background where you've got to compare and contrast. And the odd person on Facebook had made a reference to the curtains or the curtain rail. At the time on YouTube, no one seemed to pick up on it. But this is what the important part is. There is a process to everything, and not everyone sees everything all at the same time. But when it is noticed, a video can be done on the matter, hence why we're here. So, this is what we're dealing with. On the left is from Caden Pressey's point of view, and that was 10:50 p.m. Okay, Sunday night. With it being on a Sunday, partygoers like Jack Newton are wearing partially different clothing. Now, I've tried matching them up as best as I can. On the right is supposedly from Saturday, the day before. On the left is Sunday evening. The one on the right, we don't have a timestamp of them. But based on the clothing, you can see that there are differences. Jack on the left is wearing blue jeans. Jack on the right, although you can't see, if you go on Facebook, there is the odd post about of the uncropped photo where there's no guideline violations or anything like that. And Jack is wearing shorts, not jeans, and a different colour. But we're focusing in on the curtain, the railing in the background. As for the ceiling fan with the arrows, they do look pretty much the same. I'll try and zoom in as best as I can. You could say one looks bigger than the other, but what we need to acknowledge is depth of field and angling. Depending on how you angle a camera, a phone to take a photo, it can superimpose, it could enhance the size, the curvature, the shape, the size. Just like how when we saw with Jasmine Milan, tilting the head or looking down, different angles may show the face in different lights. The lighting itself, and then enhancing the visual aspect by tilting your head, turning slightly, tensing certain muscles, things like that. The same can apply to objects. If you had a toy car and you put it close to the camera on a road, you could superimpose it and make it seem like a full-size, one scale of a real vehicle. But if you move it away at distance, its true value, you're going to notice it's just a toy small car. As you see here, I would confirm and say that this is the same ceiling fan. It's not that deep. However, what about the curtain in the background? You can see the ruffles and the holes in the sheeting of the curtains as it would go through the bar across. That bar appears to be white. Hopefully you can make that out. It's like a white bar going across horizontally. And then threaded on is the curtains themselves with quite a few holes within each one. It's like ruffles and the lines as they go down, maybe I guess a pattern to it. But then so far down, there seems to be a horizontal line, a change in colour tone. From at the top of the curtains, it's like a dark grey, dark green shade, and then below it goes all white. It's like a two-tone. Nothing strange about that. However, when looking at the centre point and further down, whether it be a visual glitch, blurriness, kind of hard to tell, it looks as if the curtains are slightly exposed so you can see the window. But if that was the case, it comes across as if the window had a set of blinds, horizontal plantation-like blinds. Now, maybe people can have a set of curtains and blinds on top of the windows to cover for privacy, but really you only need one or the other for true privacy. That's what I'm thinking. Could it be a visual glitch, a weird blur, which gives off the illusion that it's exposed and open to where the window would be? You have to take in mind that halo effect, that circular or hexagon-like object on the right, that is one of those ring lights. It's what makeup, beauty influencers and artists may use at times, and other people as well. It's what you see on TikTok, mainly. It's just for that enhanced studio-like lighting. Maybe you're taking a selfie, trying to take a professional photo. Maybe it's for a business, all different purposes, and even applying makeup, maybe. But because of the glare, the intensity of the white light, it really does enhance and illuminate the area, making everything a lot clearer back there. But with that intense light, what's the opacity of the curtains? Is it a thick cloth, thick cotton material, or is it quite thin? The thinner it is, when light is shed upon it and exposed, it can make it somewhat see-through, right? So then you can see on the other side, you can see what's behind it, giving the possible illusion here that the curtains have been opened, spread to reveal the window. But based on the creases, the folds in the material, it looks like, what do you call it? Think of it like an M symbol as it goes up, down, right? Or an upside down V. It seems like whilst you've got the material at the top along the rail, as it's divided down here by the folds, those horizontal lines going across in between the curtains, it seems as if it's one of those high cut, separated style curtains where it's not just a matter of you got two pieces that come together like and then you open them again like that. It's as if it's divided into 3 or 4 sections as they can all open up in different areas. I hope you understand where I'm coming from there. We're taking that into consideration. How does it match up? Just think of it like an M symbol as it goes up and down, how it seems to expose part of the window. That's if it is exposed. How does it fare with what's on the right? First of all, we've got to take in mind we're dealing with a different camera angle, and angles can change everything. Got to take into consideration we've got more natural lighting on the right. We don't have a studio light or a ring light as you see on the left. Now, you could say, what was the usage and the purpose of the ring light Sunday then? Was it for Snapchat? Was it for the socials? Selfies? I don't know. Because we're not really seeing anyone making use of it or taking advantage when doing any of the snaps or videos. On the right, that ring light is not there. It may have been moved about. It's not that deep. However, without that enhanced lighting, it creates more of a dull effect, a more raw, natural lighting, which impacts the visual nature of the curtains on the right. First and foremost, what I would say is the railing is in fact the same colour. It's just that from a different angle, and the ruffles of the curtain material, due to the darkness and the lack of enhanced lighting, it overshadows the true colour and the visual nature of the railing. But I can say, from both angles and perspectives, they are of the same exact curtain railing, just from a different camera angle, right? Zoom in. Can you see that white horizontal line going across from left to right? You could say, well, you can see some pixels here and there broken up. Yes, broken up by the curtain material itself as it's threaded along that bar. And with it being at a different angle, the creases and folds in the curtains kind of overshadow or overlap, create a bit of a blind spot, so you can't quite see the railing the same way as if you was looking at it head on. As I said, different angles of photos of the same object can come across looking different, right? I believe it was a female called Judy with wonky glasses on Facebook recently. Judy, an individual that may not see quite eye to eye with my coverage, but nevertheless, I believe they brought it up about, you get the thumbs up, you look at this photo and you just accept it for what it is, but what about the possibilities of it being a different party, a different time? Because the curtain railing in the background's different, the curtain's different, so it's a different set, then it must be a different party. What I would say is, if you had an impetuous mindset and you rushed along and you looked at it without thinking, yes, you could say If, on the conditions that curtains, the railing, or both appear visually different, clearly different, then it's likely from two different parties, because who is going to get a new set of curtains and a new railing over the course of a weekend party? Probably not many, if not any at all. But the fact that the railing is the same colour, that needs to be acknowledged. The reason why some people will mistake it or get confused is because of how it may be camouflaged with the wall. That has to be considered. As you can see there, the curtain bar railing going across underneath is covered by material to curtain, and just on top there is a line of material where it's black. So it's black, white, black, right? You look at it on the right hand side at a slightly different angle. It's black, top layer, top part of the curtain, followed by the railing, white, black, white, black. Simple as. That's the railing. It's just that some people may have got confused with the ceiling above or the wall behind, which kind of mask or blends in with roughly the colouring of the curtain rail, meaning you don't see the railing, you just see it as the wall. So then the only other colours you make out are black or brown, which is the curtains, but to people they think it's the railing, but it's not. So the railing is the same. Judy, it's the same. In regard to the curtain, the sheeting itself, if we look at how it's divided, the pattern on it, black, brown, whatever you want to call it, with the horizontal line, two-tone, then followed by the white. That is the same as to what you see here in terms of the colour tone. Okay? The only thing that visually looks different is how the mid-lower section appears as if the curtains are divided, opened up, not like into half, but more spread. Different layers and rows opened up, then tied together at the bottom to reveal partial gaps through the window to either let light in or just for the sake of the aesthetics, if you want to call it that. But it's kind of hard to tell with the blurriness of the photo in general and that ring light, which really does enhance the lighting but sometimes can exaggerate. Lighting can add things which weren't originally there. Lack of lighting can mask and camouflage stuff that is there amongst others, but it's all one if it's the same colour, or it causes an overcast, a big shadow, a darkness, a void in which you can't really see what's there, but it's all present. That's the difference between light and no light. It changes what you can visually see. Everything can still remain the same, but how you perceive it can be altered with and different. So, in my opinion, based on the clothing of what Jack, Jasmine, Noah's wearing, the exception of the shorts, it is from the same party, and it's just a day or so apart. On the left, Sunday evening. On the right, at some point on Saturday. Simple as. Okay? But if you want to go further, because we might as well, when it comes to the Christmas tree in terms of the time of the season, been put up early, being left there since the last, who knows? But on the left, different angle from Caden Pressey's point of view, Sunday, you've got the Christmas tree and Jack Newton is just in front of it. Hopefully you can make it out. Clearly, the Christmas tree, the bulbs, tinsel upon it. You can't quite make it out in the right photo because Jack is blocking it with his head. However, you can see just over his right shoulder, highlighted in the circle, there is a bit of the tinsel or, the tree itself branching out just over his shoulder. So the Christmas tree, same position, same place and present, further reinforcing it being the same day. Okay? I don't know if you'll be able to see it clearly, But just over his shoulder, you can see a bit of green vegetation. That is the tree, whether it's synthetic, natural, plastic, whatever, okay? It's the tree. What else do we need to point out briefly? Positioning and the presence of the white rocking chair or kitchen chair, just in front of the countertop, but behind Jasmine Milan, I believe. You can clearly see that there is a white chair there without arms and a backrest, with 4 legs, I believe, and it's white. Now, you can make that out just about here. Might be hard for some people's eyes, but in between Brealey on the left and Noah Presgrove on the right, I can see the rungs, the backrest, the white chair. I can see it, I don't know if you can, but the white chair is back there just in front of the countertop at the kitchen area. Same position, same chair as what you see there. So when you've got people wearing same or similar clothing, you've got the same tree in the same position with the same chair in the same position, the same curtain railings, the same curtain pretty much, with slightly different lighting, I think we can come to that conclusion that we are looking at photos from the same party. With all that being said, we must move on to now the beginning of reactions and unusual behaviour by people in the community amongst the video, as in the photo what we just looked at and analysed, the after effects of that particular video originally, as you see titled on screen, and furthermore the recent video of mine where it was to do with Noah's mom and what she quoted from elsewhere in regard to important evidence. We're going to get through it bit by bit, so don't go anywhere. I'm going to read a couple of comments out now and then we'll make sense of it. So originally the thumbnail, the video shared onto the platform of Facebook. Credit to the individuals that share it, much appreciated. Breaking news, never seen before photo changes the narrative of Jack Newton. And that is a fair point to make because obviously in the past people had their minds made up based on the exposure, the stimuli, the material and evidence that was presented at hand at some point, and the discussions amongst people in the communities and cases. People felt that they knew what the situation was with Jack Newton and the contrast to Noah Presgrove based on the interactions, the visual nature, the photos, the footage of Noah being on the receiving end of stuff. But what about Jack Newton? Well, the photo that I presented and analysed, supposedly never seen before, YouTube decided to take it down for unjust reasons. The original reason was down to guidelines and lack of clothing in that sense, and the act of hand placement, we'll just put it like that. But I made my case, and just for context, the photo in question, the one of Noah and Avery writing on Noah, I had used that photo several times in previous videos. I presented that evidence to YouTube as well to say, well, if you're going to get me done for this, why didn't you punish me for my previous videos then? If I'm using the same material back then, which has now been flagged, why is it one rule for one moment, then a different rule for the other? What's really going on? At the end of the day, it's YouTube automated system and YouTube human reviewers that just can't follow their own guidelines and don't always act as professional as they should be. It's unfortunate. Nevertheless, before all that went down, the original video, as you see here, which some people got the chance and opportunity to watch and react, well, we actually had WJ Heel. That has come under a lot of questioning and by some labelled as attacks on WJ for involvement in the case, claims of that, and other people suggesting their background, their history, what they could be doing for or against the case, and whether it impacts and harms the justice for Noah. Things have been cleared up since. I even did a video myself resharing and highlighting, I believe, Robbie Taylor, clearing the news up with WJ Heel to set the record straight, as in people are defending WJ, and furthermore the circumstances of what he's going through due to dealing with cancer and treatment for over the last 4 years. So given the fact that I reshared that in a video, you would think some humans would be appreciative of that in a way, right? Instead of starting a direct witch hunt. Well, that's not quite the case, because as you see on screen, of all people, WJ Heel had said, "WarLike Ref, this video, such clickbait. Why does showing something from Saturday night impact the narrative for what happened Sunday night, Monday morning? It's just meant to get clicks on YouTube." That is what an impetuous human would think and say, and typically I see quite a few humans that jump to that conclusion. Clearly, WJ Heel has no clue how YouTube works, and furthermore, WJ Heel seems to lack the foundations and understanding with this said case. So WJ, I will be dealing with you in just a second, so don't go anywhere, okay? We just zoom out for a second. A follow-on from part of the comment thread onwards. I believe this was either to do with the same shared video or the after effects of when it was taken down. We got Laura Dutton being the typical over-emotional, expressive one with degenerative emojis or stickers, as we see there. Good grief. We got Brad, says agreed, what's the deal? And Laura, it's just another fresh batch of rumours. Will these people just let Noah rest in peace? Okay, well, let's deal with that head on right now. You know what makes this rather unique is the fact that you have people from two opposite sides questioning my ability and my content. That is the true definition of multiple full perspective past the point of comprehension. When you get to that area and role where you become the black sheep of a case, you take on board all sides and arguments so much that you may not even get the chance to breathe with your own opinion. Moving from left to right, the different angles where some humans get frustrated and want to know where you ultimately stand on a situation or the overall case at hand. In some ways, that is what we're seeing now with time. This is what separates the one-dimensional tunnel vision mindsets from the full holistic mentalities. When dealing with WJ Heel, they may not define themselves by a certain role, grouping, or area on the case, but from observations in general and what other people would say, you could argue if a person like that associates with other familiar named individuals deemed as the dark side, a label given by previous people in the past. Well, birds of a feather flock together. So you could say WJ may not define themselves as part of a singular group, but others would argue and say they're a part of the dark side. Laura Dutton, more so on the army page, on familiar names and faces from that side in association with the army side, which others have labelled as a symbol of the light side. This is all in regard to categorization purposes, just so you know and are clear. But the reason why I wanted to highlight that is the clear visual fact that you have people from different sides and different spectrums with different backgrounds and beliefs, but they all have issues with one. They have issues with the catalyst. They have issues with the turning point. They have issues with the one, with the mindset of an abyss compared to the rest, the masses in life that have a mindset of a basement. Because once you hit the bottom, there is no further. And that's it. When someone lacks depth, They lack understanding. When they lack understanding, it's not going to go anywhere. They may have made their bed and made their understanding. It doesn't mean to say it's the absolute truth. First of all, when you have WJ Heal, with the supposed background that they have to do with legal stuff, law, you would think they would pick and choose their words carefully in how they present themselves, how they talk about something or someone, and how they make their labels clear. They've really shown themselves up by claiming that what I have done, the way I have titled the video, is deemed as clickbait and specifically for views. As I said, WJ lacks the understanding and the comprehension behind YouTube as a platform and as a way of spreading awareness. You use titles, familiar words associated with the case, so there's relevance and it comes in the search results. You use descriptive words or quotes, descriptions, references to something within the video to make it relevant and worthy of discussion. And that's exactly what I did. Based on that photo, it gives a different narrative. It puts a different spin on the perspective compared to what other people have been used to for so long, and maybe others that have become indoctrinated into a one-way affair. Reality is, Noah Presgrove isn't the only guy at the party. Noah Presgrove isn't the only person to be approached as for a potential slap or punch. Jack Newton wanted it himself. When it came to being written on, people interpreted that as Noah being treated as the clown, being used, a vulnerable situation for Noah, and people taking advantage of that. Poor Noah Presgrove on the receiving end of everything, being written on as a joke, people manipulating him in certain positions, and then being slapped as well, and leading to death. It all told a story, and it was clear the way it was going. Really? Because based on the analysis that I did, it showed that Noah wasn't the odd one out, that Jack Newton was written on as well, either by Noah or other people. The fact that in that photo, you could clearly see there was a Sharpie pen, same colour, same font and style as writing what was on Jack's behind compared to what was on Noah Presgrove's chest. Similarities supposedly interpreted as Jazz, short for Jasmine Milan, who may have done the writing in the first place. When there's more writing amongst different people, it shows one person isn't singled out. Other people are included, meaning the party, including everyone or some, shows that there is a form of equality. It breaks the original narrative of the one-sided nature of Noah Presgrove being on the receiving end of all, when Jack Newton clearly participated as well and was up for it. It breaks the original cycle. It adds more depth and perspective to the overall atmosphere at the party and certain said events. So, WJ Heal, I ask you again, do you think that the title is clickbait and for views, when what's said in the title is exactly what's demonstrated in the video at hand, how it's described and how it's analysed? For the position, or at least the background that you have, you should know better than to be jumping about with such trendy, degenerative words and labels which other reckless humans that lack self-control manage to do. WJ Heal, my disappointment is beyond immeasurable with you. However, it's not just one-sided, because my disappointment within a range of humans is beyond that level and measure. So it's not just exclusive. But what I will say, under the circumstances with WJ Heal, with having cancer and dealing with it for over 4 years and supposedly going through cancer treatment, it can lead to side effects. What's pumped into the body, whatever the person is going through, it can have a mental strain in here with the mind, with perception, with what you see, what you think, and what you feel. With things that you're dealing with in the moment, it's understandable. Not everything may be quite there, okay? Under other circumstances, if one was fully fit and healthy, then we would have further problems, as in another human jumping to conclusions in reckless, emotional, overly charged ways. But due to illness and treatment, it can lead to a temporary decline in one's mental health, one's mental capacity, one's psychological functioning, and so on. I believe they said they spent most of the time in hospitals unable to do other stuff. Well, based on that, physically, that's understandable. Psychologically, there can be side effects there as well, with perception, understanding, and depth. With what W.J. Heel has experienced in recent time, being attacked, questioned, and other false claims made about them, supposedly, it may have put them under a greater level of strain and psychological stress. And what they've done is applied a form of displacement, shifting their negative energy, their outlook, onto someone like me. Whether they actually watched my video, watched part of it, or just judged it based on the cover, it was a bit of a reckless move. So I'd say W.J. Hill is using displacement, but still remains an impetuous, egocentric individual. And that's a problem. It's not ideal. No. Let's not forget, I believe when a woman called Carolyn made a reference to W.J. Hill without clearly stating the name, and I believe also mentioning an opinion somewhere, the way W.J. Hill responded was quite sharp and abrupt. Now, if W.J. Hill is dealing with stuff ongoing and in the background, with a bit of a sharpness and edge already, me next in line, inevitable. However, put emotions aside, critical thinking first. Put aside the create and the face to that content, and just look at the content within as face value, and what you see is what you get. W.J. Hill has severely failed in regard to that aspect. Okay? And now, Laura Dutton. A reference in direct suggesting that WarLike ref to let Noah Presgrove rest in peace kind of implies just let his name go. Don't let it come out of your mouth again. Step back. Don't cover the case. Don't talk about it. Indirectly, that's how you can interpret from her comment. If you truly want to give Noah Presgrove peace, to rest in peace, to not mention the names, to not talk, to not create all that noise, maybe everyone should do the same. Yeah. Maybe everyone should just, what? Lay down tools, step back, give up. Really? Really disappointing to see. Now, when it comes to Laura Dutton, referencing batch of rumours, whether that be directly in regard to the original video, the photo at the party, or an extension of what went down after and how the video was taken down by YouTube, or the context of how and where the material came from and the underlying motive behind it. The way Laura acts at times is definitely emotionally driven, and it is very distinguishable from a critical thinker. I have first-hand experience with Laura Dutton in the past. On Facebook, in a group chat conversation, which also involved Vanessa Salazar, Stephanie Bacon, Laura Dutton, Amy Tuesday Horzemper, Divine Sheree, the card reader, and beyond. A handful of people, I, the only male, about, okay, talking about the case, but at times others talking casually. I didn't engage in much conversation there. I'm sorry, because I was focused on actually covering the case at hand and single-handedly keeping it alive on YouTube. Yeah. Nevertheless, the others talking about all kinds of stuff, day-to-day things. When it came to Vanessa Salazar, under the impression that they were married to me, it was never true. It seemed that emotionally that there was inner connections like a sisterhood at the time. There was an emotional connection between, back then, Laura Dutton and Vanessa Salazar. And at a time when Vanessa got caught in drama, complaints and arguments with others, there was an expectation that I would be the bag handler and I would come running along to defend her no matter what. Why would one do that when one never pledged allegiance in the first place? Certain roles in life equal certain and differing responsibilities. If you're acquaintances, if you're friends, if you're family, if you're best friends, if you're in a relationship, it can differ and vary greatly. And it is that circumstances under those impressions, me doing what I did, covering the case, and engaging with some conversation on the sideline about the case, when it became either personal or off subject, when Vanessa Salazar got in trouble or arguments by their own doing or how they presented themselves amongst others, that was not my problem. But they wanted it to become a part of my problem and a part of the resolve. They wanted me to resolve it, to defend them. In doing so, it would mean compromising my own brand, compromising my own credibility, compromising the whole critical thinking nature of the case and community in the first place. They wanted me to make sacrifices, and I chose not to follow down that route. When it came to that being known and met by Vanessa, they got upset. They complained and then disappeared brief. And within that group chat, Laura Dutton was fuming. She was enraged with 10,000 years plus worth of anger all pent up, built up within, and unleashing a barrage upon me and my soul. Laura Dutton, with the last remaining remnants of teeth in her mouth, muffled out loudly, demanding and barking for me to answer her. For a creator with an audience, an establishment online, to answer to someone like her. Laura Dutton demanding why I was acting the way I was, supposedly, demanding answers and assuming that I had done or said something to cause Vanessa to become so upset. The reality is Vanessa Salazar was upset because WarLike Wrath chose self-respect and the case of Noah before personal connections of any type. You see? But it was Laura Dutton that failed to comprehend that at the time. And in terms of trying to provide an answer, she would not allow it. She had a question and she demanded an answer in follow-up to it. Now, I have a process, a method, an order when it comes to dealing with cases, the same way when it comes to dealing with problematic, disease-ridden humans. And when I say disease-ridden, I mean the mental decline, the lack of capacity and depth which people have, the lack of common sense, and clearly fueled and engulfed by overly emotional behaviour associated with the case and the inner workings of other contexts within, building friendships, getting close with one another. If you're going to get close to someone, don't let it harm the case. Don't let it blind your judgment. Don't change as a person for someone else at the cost of the case being mishandled. And that's what Laura Dutton did at the time. She let her inner conflicts and her inner closeness to Vanessa back then, it overruled her capacity, it overloaded her central executive, her mind, all over. An internal attack and war going on within, which ultimately led to a discharge, misfiring on all cylinders and targeting me in the process. Their level of high entitlement, demanding answers to their questions. But if you want answers and closure, I will respond when there is the right time. And I will answer questions in the correct specific order, which suits me and works, which will work then for you, as in when there's an order, there's functionality. When there's functionality, there is movement. Movement forwards, going forwards means progress, and progress can lead to understanding, and understanding can lead to a problem being resolved. And when something is resolved, there is peace, there is clarity, and there is closure. However, I was being interrupted and cut off by the bark of Laura Dutton, demanding and ordering what I do and what I say next. Visibly auditory, their tone was stern, their pitch was intense. They were enraged, almost like a demonic-like entity being released from their soul and their mind. Who knows what was going on with Laura Dutton at the time, or maybe in real life too. And that can apply onwards. But this is the reality. One person as an example from the light side, clearly complaining and not seeing the process, the methods, the strategies, the understanding behind the inner frameworks and beyond, with the case, the coverage, and the inner circles in communication, how that works and the networks. Overly emotional human equals a problem and a direct threat to the case of Noah. I've seen it all before in the past, the Dylan Rounds case. The downfall of the case and the slowdown of progression was driven partially from overly emotional humans. Do you want that again for a different case, a different victim? Do you want to make it all about yourself and let your emotions overrule your body and the system and beyond? Because if so, you become a part of the problem. And it's not just one person. There's a fair few out there, as we've seen with time. And you know what? When you look at it from the other perspective, the darker side, an alternative side, some people here and there, on and off, don't see it the same way as me. They don't have the same visions. With all respect, there was a time when George Choden didn't see it my way or understand the channel, the framework, the blueprints. And I did tell George Choden off at the time. I defended myself as I would any other. And I was back on the army page of all places, I believe. Ever since, George has been able to think for themselves, to retain that, but to also gain the patience and the understanding of what I do on my channel with my videos. It's not a demand, it's not an order, it's not a request. It's just a level of hope within humans that they can change, that they can slow down and breathe for the sake of themselves, but for the sake of the case, and for the sake of what they engage within. But what I must say, Tim Daniel, George Choden, one of you two, had made reference recently that W.J. Heel has been present on the case for quite a long time, if not long before I came about on the scene. Well, if that's the case, and W.J. Heel must have forgotten along the way the true depth of the case. By claiming it's clickbait, the title of that said video of mine, the same video that you watched, Tim, and you, George, that it's pointless. So beside the title, the contents within that video was deemed as pointless. Really? Is that Sam? Let's just give ourselves 5 to 10 seconds upon reflection in silence, beginning now. Okay? Upon that self-reflection, do tell me, do you think W.J. Heel has a point? The fact that similar people that associate with W.J. Heel have also acknowledged the importance of that photo and played a role in spreading the awareness of it in the first place. And then furthermore, consuming my content by listening into the analysis and the questions behind it. The purpose of that photo was to show different angles of the party house visually. We don't even see all the rooms and the angles of the party house, as in the front door, the exit ways, the back windows, curtains closed, drawn or open, the possibilities and opportunities that could have led to witnesses encountering something in a particular area of that room or looking outside round the pasture. Or maybe they were denied that if windows closed or curtains shut. As I clearly outlined, if you understand and appreciate quality, if you have the depth, the patience and understanding, similar to if you was in an art gallery, you could stand, stop and stare at a masterpiece, a photo, digital art, whatever it may be, and you could stare deep into it for hours upon end. The same way as you may stare deep into the eyes of someone you love, and you will see everything within and beyond. That a still frame and shot can tell 1,000 stories, if not more. If that's something you appreciate, acknowledge, or consent within yourself and have demonstrated, then you should be able to apply that with this particular party photo. It shouldn't be that difficult. You look at a still photo, you look at everything within, from the environment to the objects, to what's present, to what's not, what's changed, what's remained a constant, to determine what day it fell on and if it was relevant to the final party Noah attended. And based on my observations, analysis, and further analysis tonight, it seems quite likely that it is relevant. And in regard to the narrative, that Noah was on the receiving end of everything at the party, either treated as the class clown, treated as some kind of experiment, written on, slapped, pushed around, fish hooked, wrestled, and killed afterwards, supposedly. Well, parts of it, Jack Newton participated himself, whether that be self-degrading acts of pulling shorts down or at least allowing it to happen. Allowing oneself to be written on, drawn on, etc. Is that not enough? Does it not show a slightly different perspective and narrative? That it's not just Noah, but Jack Newton had a role as well when it came to the fun, the party games and anything else in between, drunk or not. It adds further questions of what other photos out there deemed as insignificant by others but gatekept by them, which could reveal a deeper story. We saw in recent time the bathroom photo that was uncropped. W.J. Heel. You're going to assume and say, that's pointless and irrelevant too? Really? Suggestion, based on your current attitude in recent time. Each photo from the party can be important if you look deep enough into it and appreciate and see the value. Even the smallest of details, the smallest pieces of material and evidence can mean a lot. But there might be a lack, there may be a decline in that ability if other humans can't see it, appreciate it, and acknowledge and demonstrate it the same way in other areas in life. See, what humans need to realize, scratching and clawing at limited scraps of evidence and material, I know very, very well. I spent years on the Kenny Veach case and even researching it visually auditory from 2015 onwards, and then creating videos 2020 onwards. At a time of when there was not much coverage, hardly any hikers going out there, just one person that did it back in 2015 and 2016 and onwards. Like a perspective, material, evidence, and creepy findings at the time, working with limited material, dealing with others being deleted, removed, hidden, taken, stolen, whatever you want to call it. The truth being covered up with time. When you're in a position where you deal with scraps and the bare minimum, you grow to appreciate those items and things present onwards with time and in cases. When you're dealing with the Noah Presgrove case for a certain length and period, much richer and greater in material and stuff to work with compared to previous cases that I have covered extensively. Other humans that lack that depth, that experience and knowledge is understandable within one's functional capacity. If you've not covered cases before, you've not engaged with true crime cases as a consumer viewer, for example, where there's been limited scraps of material and evidence and not much coming out. If you've not had to deal with that, you've had it a lot easier, right? Once you've been through the scraps, the silence, the walls, the lack of closure, not really being able to see what's ahead or hear what's around because there's just not much material or pieces of the jigsaw. But the only thing that you may hear is the ticking of a clock nearby and your breath as you exhale, almost in some kind of cryonic chamber. You manage to break out of that. You become in the presence of something more warm and greater, a case with more depth, more coverage, more activity. You'll greatly appreciate the difference between the two, a night and day difference. But I feel there's a variety of humans over time that haven't been there both before and after, lacking that full perspective, a true microcosm of beyond. There's so much depth to it, which humans aren't quite aware of or haven't experienced yet. I am not just a podcast, as some claim. I am a true crime hybrid channel of more and beyond. And I've been covering cases from 2020 onwards, okay? It's not a first time thing, and it's not just recent. And similar to that extensive experience and time spent, I've also had to deal with that time spent with problematic humans and false claims made, okay? It doesn't surprise me, these exampled peoples in what they say. But what we need to do now is look a bit further at another video that was done in recent time and what was said in response. Here we are once again, I believe on the case discussion page, the video that was done last night titled "Headlight Found Around Noah's Body, Shocking Claim by His Mom Analysis." Not a true statement fact, but a claim based on what she believes she heard of or saw somewhere. And my video went into great depth in acknowledging that, the timing of it, or at least the possibilities, as in why she would say that, suggest it, and where did it really come from. Understanding that the source, the origins are most important, that it's not all about Noah's mom or no negatives towards her. It's about understanding where it came from, why it was such an influencing impact and effect to leave a lasting impression and print visually, mentally upon Casey Smith, to reiterate it upon later discussions. That's what my video was. then the comparisons and contrast links with other cases in Oklahoma, and so on, a map analysis, an original style video by WarLike Raf himself. But not everybody saw eye to eye with it. If we zoom in just now so you can see for yourself, a female called Holly Kautzman, that's how you say their name. Now, as for Holly Dolly in a trolley, they have remained consistent. Holly has remained consistently whiny. They complained back then about me, and they continued to do so. The reality is, months spread apart, Holly still reacts. If you don't like something, you don't participate anymore. You don't talk about it. You don't talk about them. You stay far away. Holly couldn't help herself. And this is what she had to say. The only word for this story is how disgusting you must be to bring another family that to this day is still grieving just to get your ratings up. There is nothing similar to the two stories and nothing links them together other than they are both unsolved. This is sickening. Holly, I have a few words to say about that. You best settle in. And Laura once again contributing, saying, really, WarLike Raf should seriously consider keeping Casey Smith's name out of his mouth. So what you're implying, Laura Dutton, is whenever there's a breakthrough, important evidence, a quote, a message, an update provided by Noah Presgrove's mom, that if I was ever to cover it on my channel, I should not mention her name and not give credit. No, Laura, that'll only give you yet something else to complain about, wouldn't it? By claiming all WarLike Raf does is talk about things without giving credit. Talk about damned if you do, damned if you don't. I've seen it all this time. Beside that, when you have Casey Smith, Noah's mom, that is what she said. I have a question. Didn't I read somewhere that a piece of headlight was found around Noah's body? It's an inner question. It's an outer question. She's asking herself because she's not quite sure, but partially she remembers it being about somewhere, from an article, a page, a forum, a discussion group, somewhere. She's asking herself because she's got a level of doubt. She's asking other people for a level of reassurance. There is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And yet, Holly, this individual, decides to make it a big deal. And due to their overly emotional behaviour, whether that be motherly instinct, behavioural attachment, it clogs the vision. It gets in the way of critical thinking. Laura, Holly, prime examples of overly emotional, charged people. Notice how I said people, because if I was to refer to one particular gender, that would only lead to further complaints and people taking it out of proportion. Let's make one thing very clear. There have been a handful of males with time in which others have described as they must be on their male period based on how they've acted. As said, humans, regardless of age and gender, can be as cancerous as each other. And I've dealt with it for a long time. Beside that, Casey, in her own words, referring to a headlight, hence why I did my video making sense of it, the theories, the thoughts, the possibilities, clearly outlining it, making it extremely clear. A piece of headlight found, was found, that it did happen supposedly, and it was around Noah's body, based on what she saw or heard, based on what she read somewhere which seems to know the supposed facts. The video that I did, Holly, the video that I did wasn't about saying that Noah's mom was lying or spreading or creating disinformation of that nature. It was about highlighting a conversation of importance, trying to understand where it originally came from, and whatever it came from, how would they know about a headlamp, headlight, a piece of it, a part? Because if any of it is true, doesn't it change the narrative? Doesn't it give a different perspective, a wider angle lens of what could be happening, right? And furthermore, when you have other cases out there in terms of similarities, it doesn't have to be the total case. It can be a certain variant and aspect within, such as a headlight, a headlamp being found, the only thing left behind. Well, in the Noah Presgrove case, if there was no or hardly any lack of vehicle debris, but by some chance there was a headlight or a piece, and that's the only thing, well then it bears resemblance to Raoul Solis, in which only a piece or part of the headlamp light was left. That's a similarity. It's an observation. Beside that, elsewhere amongst conversations online, we had some person called Christina. This guy, WarLike Ref, can really ramble on and on. That is subjective, an opinion. I'll be happy to donate when and if he provides something useful. It's a nice backhanded compliment, that, Christina. I like what you did there. Nevertheless, Judy and her wonky glasses says in response, WarLike Ref for the longest time was interested in fighting for justice for Noah, but he now has a different audience, which in my opinion has swayed him to the other side with money. And Lisa, yes, 100%, you said it. I didn't. It's so sad. I think WarLike Ref started out with his heart in the right place, but it's pretty obvious what's going on now. Oh, is it obvious, Lisa? Well, let's see about that. Now, some of you may be face-palming already, but as for me, there is no time for that, because I need to respond back to some of those disastrous comments made. First of all, with Holly. Now, some viewers out there may get the ick with Holly and just the way her name's spelt. No, why just I-E? Well, beside that, on a more focused perspective, my point of view, the name isn't a problem. The face, who knows? But what was said is questionable. So Holly, you in one way or another referenced that the act of someone like me referring to the family, coverage on the family, which is relevant to the case, deemed as disgusting at a time of when they are grieving, and it's only done out of ratings for the sake of YouTube and getting views. Based on that mentality, Holly, are you basically saying that every video that I have done is for that reason and is deemed disgusting? Are you suggesting, Holly, that when I first started off covering the case, from the army page, from all of those people, the light side, the ones that were pushing for murder, foul play, cover-up and corruption, are you saying that when I did videos on all of that before other audiences and different sides came onto my channel, that was disgusting as well? The reality is, Holly, if you actually bothered to think for once, if you actually bothered to leave your overly emotional maternal instincts or whatever else at the door, and you decide to use critical thinking for once in your life, you would understand one thing very clear, is that videos that I have done on Casey Smith, Noah Presgrove's mom, have been done with a great level of caution stability, perspective, and understanding. As in, due to the nature of what Casey was going through in that recovery centre, interviews in between or Seb, maybe timed at the wrong time, but that's on other people and podcast, which some have deemed the wrong time and the wrong place for that as she's trying to recover back in 2024, I believe, in California. Before that and after that, grieving, that's one factor. Dealing with a form of recovery, that's another factor. And lastly, dealing with family ties at some point being severed, cut, or tarnished, or harmed, indirect because of other reasons. That the biological mother, Casey, is at the bottom of the pecking order when it came to receiving items and clothing of Noah. Her own son, but she didn't get the first picks. And Deborah Smith was the one, the grandmother to Noah, that was handing it out to other family members first. Just imagine the psychological, emotional blow that has on Casey Smith, first of all. Holly, if you spent more time focusing in on that and the different possibilities there and acknowledging that I've already done that in my videos as evident, documented, and it's all proven on my channel in regard to that. If you actually used a form of emotional depth for the right reasons in a controlled environment, you'd probably get further and you'd be complaining less. But instead, you spend more time whining about me making false claims, serious false claims, may I add. This is what's kind of ironic. You have WJ Heel making false claims about me and their role and profession in life at some point is, and then you've got Holly, some other individual out there doing the same thing. It goes to show no matter what background you have or where you come from or what profession you have in life, you can be just as incompetent as the person behind you, as incompetent as the person in front of you. It doesn't change. And I'm seeing it far too often nowadays. Now, when it comes to covering the Noah Presgrove case, you need to cover every angle, perspective, each side, the different angles, environments, the scenes, the original crime scene or a scene, the party house, map analysis, the timestamps, the footage, the material, the photos, the never seen before material and evidence that came about, given to me. I was able to show it and other people saw it for the very first time and others were ungrateful and complained because of that. And if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have got it in the first place, simple as. Okay? I think people need to know their place, know their role before they start jumping about in an overly emotional, erratic way. Disgusting is the term Holly uses. Ratings only. Taking advantage of a grieving family. You do understand, Holly, that previously one of the victim family members, a friend of theirs, a friend who is close to the victim's family, had reached out to me on TikTok and personally thanked me for what I was doing with the case and said that they appreciate and are proud and that Noah Presgrove would be proud of what I'm doing. Just know one thing, every case that I have covered to the point of becoming a black sheep, where I show total, complete, holistic nature when it comes to, mapping the different perspectives and the different sides, the thoughts and the theories. I have a 100% satisfaction rate in which whenever a family member, a victim's family, a victim's friend has reached out to me direct on behalf of someone else, they have thanked me, they have been grateful and very appreciative of what I have done. And that was it. No complaints. Not a single key person in a case has ever reached out to me and told me to stop. And as I've always said, if that ever happened, I will stop. It's not happened yet, so I'll continue on with what I can do. Meaning, Holly, your complaints, your claims, your false words, and have you bent the narrative? Your thoughts and comments are somewhat irrelevant and don't hold much weight or value in this conversation. So Holly, with a I-E pronunciation spelling, you need to simmer down, okay? You mention about taking advantage of grieving people and doing coverage on them, yet you fail to acknowledge the sensitive, balanced perspective that I have provided under those circumstances. And one thing that you don't know, Holly, but what was present at some point, that back in 2024 of August, a person I know of in real life, close, had died, passed away. And whilst dealing with that and reaching out to people in the background for the thumbs up, that I do what I do on the sideline as a means of a distraction to keep going, to get through levels of darkness. That's what I did. And people said that's okay for me to do what I do and what I normally do. But no one would know that because I don't talk about it much. The reality is, at a time of when someone that I knew of had died in real life, I continued on covering this case and Noah Presgrove, and it never showed on camera to the extent as to what other people do in reckless ways. When external stuff was going on in the background and at any other time, I continued covering the case consistently like how I've always done. Whether you see that as consistently monotone, consistently boring, consistently droning, consistently waffling, over-analysed, regardless, the consistency was there. And with consistency, there's reassurance. With reassurance, there's stability. With stability can come about a form of peace. And with peace can come about a form of self-control, external or internal. Certain core elements and factors which people crave and desire in life. I provided that on this channel through that consistency despite what I was going through. So Holly, for you to talk about grieving, ratings, this and that, you're in no position. You're in no fit state to be talking. You impetuous, egocentric, ignorant plank. Okay? And basing it off your profile picture, Holly, depending on who you are and what role and what responsibilities you have in life under certain circumstances and conditions, present or future, I think your roles and responsibilities and towards other people in life, you are failing miserably with that toxic mindset and twisted words that you have within when outwardly claiming it towards someone like me who has single-handedly kept this case alive on a separate platform whilst you spent your time twiddling your thumbs and whining non-stop when there was a time to do so in regard to me. Holly, Noah Presgrove would be absolutely ashamed of you and disappointed that you think with your first thought that anyone that's trying to cover the case in a balanced, holistic way is also doing it for ratings and twisting it and taking advantage of a victim's family when you have an established channel present that has covered several cases in the past, all with a 100% satisfaction and positive response from key people in the case. You wouldn't know that, Holly, because you don't bother researching, do you? You just jump about and make your points. Maybe you deem them as statements or opinions. You say them very recklessly. I don't think Noah Presgrove's family would approve of that either, by jumping about. Because at the end of the day, let's be real, Holly, and for anyone else, when it comes to the victim's family, it's a term, it's a categorization term you can use. And yeah, the family are suffering and are struggling, but so are and so will other people out there at different times. What I'm saying more so is, you have these families, you have Noah Presgrove's family struggling, suffering, all kinds of emotions, and yeah, you could refer to them as victims, but remember, Holly, not everybody is truly vulnerable, truly victims. because there is still strength within those said people struggling to be breathing every day, to be waking up every day, to be putting food and water into their mouths every day, despite what they have lost. Okay? When it came to the Dylan Rounds case, yeah, you had the victim's family, but they weren't complete victims or weak. They were strong and they kept on fighting till the absolute end. And I know about that. I knew that because I was there covering the case from when I started and when it finished. 2 to 4 years in total, or so. 2 to 3 years, probably about 4 years. So I saw the evolution. I saw a victim's family go from strength to strength despite what they lost and despite what they went through. Okay? The evolution's there. The same can apply here. Not everybody wants to truly be labelled as a vulnerable victim. Some would like to be referred to as maybe survivors or just humans struggling during times of darkness. But Holly, you seem to put a spin, a twist on things. Sounds like emotionally driven behaviour to me. It's not a good look. Once again, you're failing yourself, you're failing your presence, your attitude, mindset is letting you down. And if any of that transfers onto other people in the future that you know of, God help them. Again, you need to do better, Holly. There is still time to change. Okay? Beside that, Holly was extremely incompetent and reckless by stating how the Noah Presgrove case and the Royal Solace case had no similarities whatsoever. Holly, if you really watched my video, you would understand that the reference of what Casey referred to, as in a circular part possibly being found near to Noah, and then a circular part being found near to Raoul, that is a similarity based on wording and descriptions. Not the be-all and end-all, but it's a similarity. It's not that deep. It's quite simple. It's an observation. Holly, you're lacking those observational skills, aren't you? In regard to the state, in general, location rough, Oklahoma, that's a similarity as well. Not that hard or difficult, is it? It's just a similarity. It's an observation. And both occurred on main roads / highways, different places, but kind of on highways where there's busy traffic and certain speeds of traffic which would go faster on those roads compared to other roads. A similarity there, right? That's it. It's not that complex. There are similarities. The end of the case, the cause of the death could be somewhat different, yes. But you're looking at the small elements, the small details within to try and establish a possible link to make sense of something that is deemed as unsolved but labelled as hit and run. And then the Noah Presgrove case, which is unsolved but not closed, truly. But the cause of death remains unknown completely. Do you not see the process, Holly? You just don't see it, do you? It's embarrassing. Truly embarrassing that you can't see it. You have a lot of learning to do, Holly. But don't worry. The full playlist on the Noah Presgrove case is available where the eye symbol is just up there. So make sure to click on it and listen in. Okay? Beside that, Laura Dutton had said that Ref should consider keeping her name, as in Casey's, out of his mouth. Laura, you're in no position to be talking after the way you defended Vanessa Salazar in the past, overly emotional behaviour. You saw how that went. You saw how Vanessa turned out. Yet you let your emotional connections within compromise critical thinking. But at that time, your demands barking like a certain other J person, demanding and high levels of entitlement, you're in no position whatsoever to be talking. I'd say keep words out of your mouth, but to be honest, any words that come out of your mouth in the first place are inaudible. Yeah. Moving on with Christina. Never come across them before. I might not again. But beside that, with their little backhanded compliment of support would be shown, donations would be given. Well, Christina, you best be careful with that, because people on the same side as you, the light side, would say I'm being paid off. Funny when it suits people and when it doesn't. Why are we even talking about donating and giving? Because in that thread, in that comment, I never talked about that. But Christina was willing, or would be, if things changed. So basically, indirectly, that is a trap. What Christina wants me to do, or wishes, deep down, and what other people would hope for, but not under the same terms, is for me to push the idea of murder, foul play, and that's it. Don't consider anything else ever again. Shut everything else out. Delete all my other videos which push for an accident or other circumstances. Delete all my videos on a J person. Delete all my videos on Caden Pressey. Terminate my channel. Delete videos. Destroy it all. And rebuild it under someone else's demands. Like some kind of submissive individual. Some kind of submissive person. And then what? I get rewarded for my good actions. I get rewarded for my changed ways. I get paid. People donate to me. Christina donates to me because I changed the narrative again. Playing into their hands. That sounds like I'm being paid off. People like that and others beyond who have the cheek at times to say that I'm corrupt or people are paying me off when they themselves are willing to waft their wallets about if it means covering it from their side. Bidding war. Noah Presgrove would be disappointed within you for that aspect. Pathetic. I'm a black sheep, meaning I'll cover it from all sides and perspectives, and some won't like that. I've given the definition earlier on. You can always rewind back if you need to hear that yourself, okay? But the main part behind Christina's comment, conditions met if and when WarLike Ref decides to produce videos, content that is considered useful. What some consider useful to others is code word for you have to cover something that I agree with and believe in, because if you don't, it's not useful. Yeah, overly emotional behaviour, just like that. Not a good look, not at all. Christina, you referred to when and if, thus implying for a certain length period of time, last few months, if not longer, anything and everything that I've uploaded to my channel has amounted to nothing and nothing for the case, and it's being completely useless. You have not said those words, but based on interpretation, that is what you may be thinking in a more polite way of thinking, right? Christina, are you aware that I am the one to release certain material, photos, previous and present, which have never been seen before? The reality is, Christina, if it wasn't for me, you would never be able to see them. Oh, does that sound quite high and mighty, that line? I'm basing it as an observation, and that's all. And the reason why I say that is because the people that passed on material on and off to me, right, are the same people that tried it with others, but bridges were burned down because other people could not control themselves, could not be patient enough, and could not be understanding enough when receiving and retrieving information and photos. So when bridges were burned down, at that time, all hope was lost. So some say, and Lisa and others, as a new audience comes about, it's like what Judy mentions too, Because of a new audience coming about, more action was taken. More was actually done. Yeah? Besides any support to the channel, and in positive ways and in general, and long-time supporters too, away from the case and away from these people's pettiness, more has been done, more has been progressed when a different audience came about compared to the previous audience, in a way. Previously in the past, it was a lot of words, text, having to believe in it, capital letters, shouty tones, Dina Rose, the Coven, all of that. J-person on the period, looking at a message comment, treating it as a direct threat to them, and worrying and panicking when it was just simply misinterpretation of the language. We've had Laura Dutton severely fail many times in understanding language, text, wording, comprehension, reading on screen. Doesn't just fall on her, it falls onto a range of people. Some of the names people, what we've seen today, could also apply to them too. To put it bluntly, and being realistic, because once again, I have been present from all different sides, digitally, pages, groups, and all that, so I see the inner workings and the frameworks. The reality is, the army page and the connections, ties with that with other subgroups or people is an emotional breeding ground of erratic people, not all, because there are genuine people in those groups that are silent or keep their heads down, but it will be filled with other problematic people. Let's make that clear. It was okay at some point and then it all went downhill eventually. It went downhill before I looked at it from other perspectives, put it that way. You know, there could be lots of receipts of hypocrisy, two-faced behaviour, you know, double standards, lies, deception, you know, all of that, but it would take over from what's important, the Noah Presgrove case, and that is why I can only cover so much of these problematic humans, because if I covered any more, it would just simply take over everything, and it's not worth it. But from time to time, it's needed within controlled levels, something which other humans don't know the meaning of, as we've seen. What else do we have? Yeah. So hopefully Christina does some research at some point and realises that the only reason why certain photos, clips are out there public is because I was that one bridging the gap between opposing people which others don't get on well with or have problems with. You know what you need to do to the problematic people out there? You wonder why certain stuff wasn't shared. You wonder why you didn't get certain answers at a time. It's because you were too entitled. You demanded too much. You rushed in like a bull in a china shop and expected too much and demanded too much. You did not show respect. You did not show patience. You did not show understanding. You did not show depth. You overreacted like the overly emotional individual you are. And when I say you, this does not refer to a singular person. This is in regard to a whole host of people over time in which I've dealt with, right? You know, if you mishandle certain communication and you mishandle certain contacts and you wonder why you've lost them, more importantly, why you've lost the key into learning the truth, that's on you. You've got to learn. At times you've got to work with maybe enemies or work with opposing people for the sake of the case, regardless of how you are treated. And that's exactly what I have done in the past and what I've done with time. And because of that patience and that understanding, it has led to some reaching out with material without problem and understanding. Simple. It's really that simple. But if you're overly emotional, you're not going to understand, and likely you never will. If you don't change your ways, do you expect anything to change or get better? Exactly. You want to learn, you want a bit of perspective, you want a bit of closure and peace. Well, charging in or being entitled isn't going to get you anywhere. What's most embarrassing is 99.9% of these people are significantly older than me and have more life experience, and yet how they present themselves is rather pathetic, almost a waste of oxygen. Yep, exactly. Moving on. Judy mentions about a different audience, a shift and change in perspective and a motive driven by money. All you can say with Judy is, at least she says, in my opinion. She's not stating it as a fact. It's not a slanderous fact statement, which is damaging. It's just an opinion. It could be argued an invalid, incorrect one, an ignorant opinion, of course, but at least appropriate language is used there, right? But in regard to audiences, even before people pushed the idea of money, because people really like talking about it. You see, the funny thing is, people like to have a go at me and label me everything under the sun. But a collection of people have actually talked about money, gaining money, being paid off with money, and WarLike Ref, name associated with money. People have spent so much time talking about money, more than I have ever done on my channel. What does that say? I think it says more about them than it does about me. It sounds like a level of what, self-projection or something? A form of jealousy? Why do we keep talking about money? Why do we keep obsessing over money? I'm here trying to cover the case. What are you doing? Too busy talking about money? What? Strange, isn't it? I think people forget when it comes to donations on YouTube or elsewhere, I'm not in control of it. If people want to give, then they can give for whatever reason. Any donation hasn't been driven or forced in the fact of, do this, do that, and I'll give you money. Never happened. I've done what I've done. I've kept to myself, and people have donated as a means of saying thank you or it's appreciated, and that's it. That's more than enough. It's the choice of the viewer, and that's it. If you don't want to give, you don't have to give. But what I will say is, within all fairness, with what I do and the time and effort that I put in, people that consume, watch, people that don't support the channel and don't donate, but what they do contribute is just toxicity, negativity, complaints and harassment. Those type of people are nothing but absolute freeloaders. Let's be real. Because what do they contribute? All they contribute is complaining, false claims and attacks while still consuming the content which a person has put time and effort into making. And they still expect and they still demand and they're still entitled with their mind. What are they like in real life, in their professions, with their family, with their kids, I wonder? Well, I've got a good idea. It's all smiles, isn't it? It's all positive, all nice. Then behind closed doors, digital closed doors, I see people for what they really are, don't I? I really do see people for what they really are. And sometimes I can see too deep, and sometimes I know too much about people, more than they have ever known about themselves, to the point where it actually scares them. Weird, isn't it? Very. Last but not least, Lisa Jediman. If I'm correct in saying, I believe Lisa Jediman was Lisa on YouTube, a viewer on my channel, the one with the red teapot profile picture. Well, if that's correct, that Lisa turned out to be nothing but an absolute two-faced, erratic, unstable individual who acted one way on my channel, then elsewhere spoke behind my back. Lisa says it's sad how it's gone, how the channel has gone with Ref and just the overall theme and everything. You know what's sad, Lisa, is the fact at one point you supported another YouTube channel out there that was known for threatening behavior, deep fakes without people's consent, threats of possible revealing of locations, threats of sexual deviant activity aimed my way, and you, Lisa, thought that was perfectly fine. It says a lot about you, doesn't it? Because indirectly, Lisa, if you support someone that issues out sexual deviant threats, what does that say about you as a friend, as a mother, as whatever role or responsibility you have in life? Are you safeguarding your people? If you surround yourself around people like that, you're supposed to have a role in keeping people safe and protecting people at times. Seems like you're failing at that, besides many other things, you incompetent plank. All these humans, more experience, in some areas more knowledge, higher professions, whatever, it means nothing, because what's in here just isn't. I've seen Lisa, just based on the profile picture, on the photos, the presence, the atmosphere, the body language. Lisa seems like a lackadaisical, dipsy individual with the heads in the cloud. Oh, smiley, happy, 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 it's all rainbows. Get back down to reality. Let the gravity drag you back down and see what's really going on. Let's have one last moment, 5-10 seconds of silence just to reflect, okay? There we go. So, I think it's a good thing if you've got the light side and the dark side, some of which attacking me. Because for those that attack me, there are some people from the light side, or ones from the light side are from the dark side, that also support me too. I see negatives, I see positives amongst both sides. What creates more balance? You don't want it to be, completely one-sided. You don't want it to be negatively one-sided. What good does that do? Sometimes you don't want it to be positively one-sided, because then it feels a little boring in a way. You need a bit of balance, a bit of good, a bit of bad, a bit of support, and a bit of hate for that balance. I've seen both. But one thing that does remain a constant and doesn't change is defending oneself, especially on my own channel, on a separate platform, which other cretins out there that complain and attack still consume. Exactly. We've seen the J person in the past celebrate or plead and beg for WarLike Ref to step down from covering the case. Who would have thought it? There comes a day or a time where a person is begging someone that has single-handedly kept the case alive to just step down and stop covering it so it just dies out. What good does that do? How incompetent could you get? It's embarrassing, isn't it? But you know what? When it comes to the likes of WJ Heel, when it comes to Laura Dutton, when it comes to Holly, when it comes to maybe Christina, when it comes to Judy, when it comes to Lisa, when it comes to a vast variety of these people and onwards, Divine, Sheree, Amy Tuesday, Hozempa, and many more out there, and males as well, right? The J person, that one. End of the day, a lot of these humans could be struggling psychologically in other ways outside of the case or by the hands of other people. And most of these humans, because they're already struggling, because their mental capacity has reached a limit, they may have gone through a burnout phase, they may be crashing, they may be confused, they may not know what's really going on, they may be overwhelmed, they may be very stressed outside of the case. They might have illnesses, some may have cancer, some may have limited time, whatever it might be. Some may have marriage issues, some may have loyalty issues. Who knows what's happening? Darkness could be going on, and people are just simply taking it out on me, treating me like a punching bag. Wouldn't surprise me. But why would I be targeted? Because I stand out the most, just because I put myself out there. I'm frequent, I'm consistent, I'm on YouTube, I'm somewhat known, I'm established, and I show up a lot in recommended videos and whatnot, or videos are shared on elsewhere. Acts as a trigger to other people that will see my face, see my channel, see my video and think, I'm going to wake up wrong side of the bed today and target him instead. I'm going to channel my own frustrations or failures. I'm going to channel my own inner frustrations and take it out on WarLike Ref instead. Okay, well, the thing is, Dr. WarLike Ref hears you and understands, but will only take so much treatment to an extent, because when people start acting like a disease-ridden cancer, metaphorically speaking, you'll be treated like a cancer. If you're going to act like a twat, you will be treated like a twat. Okay? My name's WarLike Ref. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. For those that did watch and managed to stick through this, I appreciate that. And those that watched in the background, feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button, share the video to spread this awareness, right? It really needs the awareness based on the shocking behavior, which can be interpreted as proof of not wanting the truth to come about or justice for Noah. Because at the end of the day, what I have covered, what I have revealed, what I have documented, what I've compared and contrasted, and the bridges that I have built which other people destroyed in the first place, what that has led to is more understanding and progress in other ways, and filling out grey areas in the background which the general public was denied of in the first place, or with time at the hands of other reckless people within the community, right? What it seems to be is, no matter what I do, people have made their minds up at a certain point. When they make their minds up, it becomes emotionally biased, extremely emotionally driven. So I can release photos, videos, if there was ever an opportunity, and people wouldn't even, consider it or wouldn't even watch. I've done countless videos over the last month or so. The idea of foul play and murder, no one acknowledges that. No one bothers watching them. They just keep saying, WarLike Ref is on the dark side. WarLike Ref is pushing a different narrative. WarLike Ref has been driven one way. You keep saying that on repeat. Look at my videos. Look at the videos really closely, and you will understand it's not the way you think it is. Your own fantasies, your own opinions, your own emotions within have taken control of you. You're acting out in erratic, uncontrollable, pathetic, useless ways. You need to get a grip of yourself, simmer down, calm down, breathe in, breathe out, repeat, reflect upon yourself, become a better person, do better in general. Then reflect on the videos, look, listen, learn, know your place, know your role, stop whining, get a grip, listen in, and then you'll understand. It's not that hard. But it might feel an impossible mountain to climb for yourself when you can't look past your own feelings for someone. You talk about the case being important, Noah Presgrove being important. You're in any position to be saying any of that when you can't even look past your own emotions. Embarrassing, truly. You present information, you present details, you present evidence and whatnot, and all people do is throw it back in your face and push it aside. That's what some have done with time. There's quite a few ungrateful bastards. There really is quite a few ungrateful people out there. The way they reject it, they don't consider it, they don't acknowledge it. Then clearly you don't want truth for Noah. Clearly, based on that, it's not good luck. It really isn't. But there are still stable people present watching on my channel, and long-time viewers as well. Shout out to them. So, with that being said, we'll see what happens next. But thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night for now.